now. Hi, everyone. We're just giving folks a few seconds to get logged in here before we get started. If you are already logged in, you can find some info in the chat about tonight's book. Proceeds will go to support Food Bank for New York City, so check that out. All right, good evening and welcome to tonight's live online author event with Greenlight Bookstore. I'm Chelsea from Greenlight, and we're excited to welcome you to our online event series, Squawkin Sports, hosted by Patrick Sauer and David J. Roth. For this special installment, they'll be chatting with Mike Birbiglia and J. Hope Stein for their new book, The New One. So you're in for an excellent time. Before we start, I just want to say a huge thanks to Patrick, David, Mike, Jen, and the team at Grand Central Publishing for making this happen, and to all of you for buying tickets and showing up. Though we're not able to host events in our store spaces, our community of authors and readers is still here. We're grateful for your support and for this chance to make space for conversation and connection. Now, I have just a couple of housekeeping things to go over. In our Zoom webinar tonight, you can see and hear the speakers, but they cannot see or hear you. They can see that you're here though, and you should be able to see a count of your fellow attendees on the top of your screen. If you're viewing this event, you're welcome to post your comments and thoughts in the chat. That's a great way to show your appreciation for the authors and interact with fellow attendees. You'll also be encouraged to use the chat to interact with the authors in a choose your own poetry prose adventure. We want this feature to be as interactive as possible, so please make sure to change your auto chat settings so that your message is directed to all panelists and attendees, not just all panelists. We are recording tonight's event, so look out for video or audio versions on our social media channels later on. If you purchased a book bundle ticket for tonight's event, thank you. You'll receive an email with more information later this week when your copy of The New One has shipped. If you'd like to get an additional copy, you can order online at greenlightbookstore.com for a quick pickup at the store or for shipping anywhere in the US. You can find that book buy link in the chat. Or you can even shop in our stores 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday. If you care about supporting the careers of authors and the ongoing existence of indie bookstores, buying a book is a great way to show your support. And Mike and Jen are supporting Food Bank for New York City with book sales for this event and book sales in the next 48 hours. Now to introduce our hosts and featured authors for tonight. Our hosts for this evening are Patrick Sauer and David J. Roth. Patrick has written for many large publications you've heard of, and even more small ones that no longer exist. He's a founding member of the Billings, Montana to Brooklyn sports writing pipeline. David is a former editor at Deadspin. He previously worked at Vice Sports, and his writing has appeared in the New Republic, New York, Food and Wine, Hazlitt, the New York Daily News, and the New Yorker. He is not the David Roth from Van Halen or Magic. They'll be speaking with featured authors Mike Birbiglia and J. Hope Stein. Mike Birbiglia is a comedian, storyteller, director, and actor who has performed for audiences worldwide. His most recent shows, The New One, Thank God for Jokes, and My Girlfriend's Boyfriend, can be found on Netflix. Additionally, Birbiglia is a filmmaker who wrote, directed, and starred in the films Sleepwalk with Me and Don't Think Twice. Currently, he is the host of the weekly podcast, Mike Birbiglia's Working It Out. His first book, Sleepwalk with Me and Other Painfully True Stories, was a New York Times bestseller. As an actor, Birbiglia has appeared on Inside Amy Schumer, Girls, Broad City, Orange is the New Black, and Billions, and in the films Trainwreck, The Fault in Our Stars, and Pop Star. J. Hope Stein is a poet and the author of Little Astronaut. Her work has been published in the New York Times, The New Yorker, and Poetry International. Their new book, The New One, is full of laugh-out-loud funny parenting observations, perfect for anyone who has ever raised a child, been a child, or refuses to stop acting like one. The New One has been praised by many fellow writers and entertainers, including Ilya Kaminsky, Ira Glass, Lin-Manuel Miranda, John Mulaney, and Mary Carr, who says Mike Birbiglia and J. Hope Stein have written the seminal parenting tome, side-splittingly funny from the first word to the last delicious bite. It's a page-turner, wise and wise-ass, the comic kid of the year. Whether you've been a parent or ever had one, you'll love this knockout. I'm going to pass things off to Patrick and David to MC tonight's event, and then Mike and Jen will be talking with them and with all of you. Patrick and David, please take it away.
Thanks, Chelsea. This is our first ticketed event, so this is very exciting. I'm having a glass of wine.
It's fairly exciting.
Not your usual beer. Look, I have wine in a goblet.
Oh, it's nice. Get some ice in there.
Yeah, rosé. Yeah.
Solid. That's good.
Summer never ends. So, Mike and Jen, thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's just ask you a couple questions before we get into the choose your own adventure game. One thing I found really interesting when I
be careful by the way. Be careful by the way. Don't say choose your own adventure because we will be sued.
Select your own excitement.
Yeah.
There you go.
One thing when we had talked earlier, when you wrote the book. So for those of you who've seen the special, perhaps not read the book, Mike reads a few poems, and there are these moments of grace in the Broadway show. In the book, however, it's more of a back and forth between, raising your daughter, and you had not read each other's writing on this.
No.
When you started to put it together, it must have been kind of this revelation that your wife had this entire narrative running at the same time as you're writing the thing. And I just find that fascinating because it really works in the book too. It's like this back and forth of different worldviews, different writing styles, and yet you're obviously parenting the same child, at least some days.
Yeah, it was sort of this thing where we, at a certain point, we were just showing each other different pieces of writing, and it was like puzzle pieces of like, oh, this could go with this, and this could maybe go with this, and like a lot of times, like we would have like a board, like a cork board, and we'd put like the name of a poem. And it's funny because what we're gonna do tonight, the choose your poem adventure or whatever, is kind of like that in the sense that it's like. We'll be like, you could choose introvert versus extrovert or who did, but that's sort of how it would be up on the wall. We'd go, oh yeah, who did could be here. And little astronaut could be here. And that was sort of, that's how I remember it.
Yeah. Well, when the book started, we were just going to have the 3 poems that were in the Broadway show just be in the book. But then I don't know. I feel like the more you put on the page, the more it was like, well, what if there was a poem here and then a poem here? And then it started to feel like it was punctuating the book a little bit or finding like,
yeah.
I don't know. It started to feel like the more we put in, the more it needed to be put in, which was not planned at all. And I just happened to have had all these pieces written.
Yeah.
Most of them
Jen writes a lot. She mostly writes under a pseudonym. And so like, she just writes and writes for the pure enjoyment of doing it, and
well, some of it was interesting because, to me, like a surprise to me, even because like there's stuff that I knew that I wrote when I first had a kid, but the book starts when I'm pregnant, and we had never talked about those poems until the book process started, and then I was like, well, during that time period, I was writing poems like from the perspective of being like a fish, which are totally ridiculous and non-linear.
Yeah.
And we were like, there's no way that would work in the book. And then I ended up putting a couple of them in the book, which is, that was like the process was surprising to me. And I didn't even realize like, oh, I was pregnant when I did that, when I wrote those pieces.
I feel like even some of them were prompts from your poet peer, Ilya.
Maybe.
Like you'd be like, email me a thought about what you're experiencing right now.
Yeah.
Jen is one of these people. She's very different from me. she writes poetic emails. I just write, we got to get the fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like, but she get an email from Jen. It's like, oh, it's well written. You know what I mean?
I write, we got to get the fucking thing also. Otherwise, we'd never get the fucking thing.
Well, it's interesting. And I write the occasional essays. I've written essays, but it's not really my thing. Dave writes them all the time. But there's something, poetry to me is like magical in some ways. It's like, oh, Mike wrote 7 pages on this. Oh, here's 7 lines that says that thing. And it's,
that's
I would
always
be intimidated by that. Like just reading this great, ethereal, beautiful poem next. It's like, well, my story is also good.
But there's something about the expansion of it. The idea that you only have like 25 words, you need to get like at least 23 of them really right, which is like if you're going for thousands, it's very different. That I think that sort of counterpoint in terms of the pacing of the book is really interesting too. I saw the show and admired it very much, and sort of when I got the book was like, all right, well, it's not like, reading The Silence of the Lambs after watching The Silence of the Lambs. Like there's very few commonalities between them just as texts, but also it's like knowing what happens is not, right, the dramatic thrust of the performance. But in both of these cases, it is so much bigger and more expansive on the page than, and again, like I admired it very much on Broadway. There's more happening in it. There are more perspectives with it. Is it writing wise? Like, I assume that you had to work this out before, because this is all magic to me. Going on stage and talking like this, you write it all out. Presumably you're also a note card, storyboard sort of thing.
Same thing, yeah.
The two of you pulling that apart together after the fact and making it a book, is that how this worked? Like, what is the timeline of this coming together relative to the show and that collaboration happening? Like, is it after the fact, during?
The collaboration started because I was working on the show in front of audiences for like a couple of years, literally. And so I would have these moments where, Jen is always included in whatever I'm doing, and I'm in some way included in whatever she's doing, just because we're both writers, and she's a producer on my films, and so we're always crossing streams of artistic streams. But with this one, with the show, I hit a point where I was like writing about Una's milestones, first crawling, first this, first that. And I was saying to Jen, like, hey, do you remember like any of Una's milestones? And she literally handed me the poem An Infant Reaches, which is in the book. And I was like, oh, fuck, like, can I just read this on stage and say you wrote it? And she was like, sure. And so then I tried it on stage, and it was so much better than what I was saying. To your point, David, which is like, it's like, if you can say something or you read something that in 8 words says more than you're saying in 40 words, like, absolutely, let's go with that. And that sort of became the archetype for our workflow, because that happened 3 more times or whatever more times in the show. And at a certain point, we decided, like, let's try to do this maybe with a book. And then it was funny because the first publisher, we pitched the book to, we never told the story.
Unnamed publisher.
Met with a couple publishers, and like, we thought like, well, oh, this is a cool idea. Like he said, she said with poetry and comedy, and it seemed fun, And then we've never heard of that. We pitched it to one publisher, and they were like, huh. Like, it was like,
they were just like, they were just like in this like meeting. It was
hilarious.
It was a meeting in an office.
It's hilarious now. It was very weird at the time.
Well, it was an office building where, like, as like a young 20-something, I had tried to get a job there as an intern, didn't get a job there. So like all that energy was coming back at me when I was like walking through the halls.
That failure energy.
Yeah, that's what you want. Heading into a meeting, anything that reminds you of anxieties of your past.
And they're just like, poetry's funny because it's like, it's weird how it's like all these different weird ways, and like how no one understands it and it like doesn't sell at all.
Yes.
It was like, but it was like these people saying it in like the nicest way, but like executives.
So then we went home, we were like, what are we gonna do? Because like that was like the first of like whatever 5 meetings. So Jen just goes, you should just go pitch it yourself.
Like, I don't want to
like
be
it's just have it be a comedy book or whatever. And that's no big deal. And Jen's an introvert anyway. So it's just kind of like, it's fine. So I was like, all right, like, cause she was right. Like it wasn't in her head. Like, it was like weird. Like they did not dig it. Yeah. And so then I pitched it myself, just as a comedy book to other places. And then Grand Central, our future editor, Gretchen Young, was like, where's Jen? Like at the meeting was like, where's Jen? Like, and like, she is curated.
Haven't you heard poetry doesn't sell?
Yeah. But she had fortunately edited like George Carlin books before, and she had edited poetry books before. So like
Elizabeth Alexander.
Yeah, she had like a whole perfect understanding of how something like that could work. And so I actually was like, I sort of in the room, like sort of explained the poetry side of it, and she was just all in on it. And really, like along the way, like encouraged us like more poetry, more, and it was
so
like
pretty
cool.
I was like, maybe one more poem, but not too much. And she'd always be like, more poems, more poems.
You got the sense that they were like commercially I mean, like this had already been a very successful, like highly awarded cultural product from like a name brand person. And they were just like, well, but the poems, they're scary for me and also for readers. Like you thought it was that big like a warning off?
That was the vibe.
Poems are scary for people though.
I mean, but
especially for mainstream presses are, they run from poetry. You say the word poetry and it's just like they can like feel the like money like strip up like, bank accounts and like
I'll do an impression of someone who's not here, and I won't say his name of who I'm doing it. I'll do it's of a poet. Know what? Nobody buys poetry books.
I know who that is.
Nobody buys poetry books.
Nobody's buying poetry.
Nobody's buying poetry these days.
Shane McGowan.
No, it's not.
I was gonna be like Seamus Heaney. I don't know. Is it racist to guess that?
We're trying to do a wonderful Irish.
We're doing a beautiful Irish poet voice. Yeah, you hear that a lot. Poetry is not as commercially viable, and if you look at like the poetry charts, a lot of times like it's dead poets. Like it's not
dead poets and Instagram poets. But which is.
But at the same time, poetry is really having a big resurgence right now. I feel like it's the first time I actually feel like really excited about poetry.
Yes.
When I see poets work out there now, I'm like, wow, there's so many amazing voices right now, and I don't really feel like I felt that my whole life.
Well, like
it's not commercially viable, clearly, because there's not a genre of music in which there's a lot of rhyming and storytelling,
the kids
cadence, that has found an audience in the last 40 years.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think the interplay of your more sort of, I mean, this is extremely accessible prose in the sense that it's jokes told by a professional on the page.
Yeah.
That like the interplay of that with the poems, which are, I mean, honestly, are also very accessible. I mean, like just in the sense that,
and fun. They're fun. They're like Ogden Nashi fun.
Yeah, and like they have this emotional heft that's not like buried in ambiguity, but they're also not, somebody being like, when the sun comes out, I feel its warmth and brightness, and I'm happy. Like it's not.
That's good. Write that down.
Thanks. I stole it. I owe Ruby $50 for saying that. But the idea of the two of them together, like, I feel like there's legs for that if other people and places wanted to do it. It's just a question of this is obviously an unusual collaboration because you guys collaborate so deeply in other things.
It's funny, David. We had thought that same thing. Like when we did it, and Ira Glass was actually really encouraging too along the way. He was another person who was like, more poems when we'd show him drafts of it. And it was a similar vibe of like, how come no one's done this? This actually does seem like a really logical handoff. Like people who would be nerds about comedy would be nerds about poetry and likewise.
The other thing that Mike did was he put me on stage sometimes when I'm like not a performer.
Oh,
and
wow.
He put me on stage with his audience, and I would come on and do like encores sometimes where we were like trying to work out sort of our rhythms and sort of which things work together. And
like at Cherry Lane Theater, we did a whole bunch of shows together, like 20 shows.
26.
Working it out, 26 shows last summer.
Yeah.
And then we did
intense.
Largo last year in Los Angeles.
So
and
as we were writing, we were sort of finding our groove by doing live shows, which is like his process and not mine. So I sort of really like jumped into your process in this way that was like terrifying but very rewarding.
And then like even what's funny is to your point, David, of like that poetry and comedy like have like a natural relationship. Like one time Jack Antonoff, or a few times Jack Antonoff came, the musician came to those shows, and he played piano, and we would actually sing some of Jen's poems as lyrics.
It's pretty amazing.
And we were just like riffing, and it really was sort of like an old-timey show kind of thing.
Yeah. That was
Can I ask you one question about the show? I've seen a decent amount of theater in my lifetime, and you sort of remember moments more than the show itself, of course. So, spoiler alert if anybody has not seen the thing.
Oh yeah,
it's way too late for that.
It's been a while.
Who came up with the toy drop and the thing drop? It's just such a brilliant moment. I mean, how long did that take to come up with? Just the physical, was it put together? It's just such an incredible thing.
It was definitely a huge collaboration between myself and our my director Seth Barish, who's involved with all my shows and directs all my shows, Beowulf Barrett, the set designer, and Ira Glass, our producer. But a lot of it came from, I would hit a point in the show on the road, and it was after our daughter was born. In the storytelling, I could feel from the audience that they thought the show was over. And it was so clear that the audience was like looking at their watch like, all right, when are we gonna head out once the baby was born? And I was like, oh shit, there's so much more to the show actually. And so I remember I was on the phone one night with Ira Glass, and I was like, Ira, I'm having this weird thing, and he's a king of storytelling and a giant in storytelling. I thought maybe he could help me crack it. I was like, the audience thinks the story's over, because in movies and stuff, when you have a baby, the story's over. And he goes, well, it's the theater. You can do anything, like anything could happen. Like, there could be like a change of the set, and there's toys everywhere. It's like it's a nursery, whatever. And immediately I had this thought. I'd actually just seen the play Yerma, or we had just seen this play Yerma at the Armory. And it's this crazy set change thing they do. Did you see it? Did you guys see it?
No, but I've seen productions at the Armory, which is you're basically going there to see whatever cool shit they're doing with the sets. And if the play is good, that's also tight. But yeah.
Yeah, it was wild, because you're like, oh my God, like in 1 second, the blackout, totally different set. And you're just like, I just cannot fucking believe this. And
is it Ivan?
Oh, yeah, Ivanhoe's the director. Yeah, I think maybe, but
I don't know.
But anyway, so it was.
I've seen some of his other shit too, and yeah, that sounds like him.
It was wild, and it was like, and so at that moment, I thought, well, what if it falls from the ceiling? And I called my director Seth, and he was like, yeah, that could be great, and he built on that. And then we called Beowulf, and he built on that, and then we figured out like a way that essentially like we could rig up all the toys in the ceiling, and then it was essentially like guys on the side like pulling down. I mean, it's really elaborate.
That's actually heartening.
How long did it take to get right? Like, I mean, was that just weeks or?
I remember the first time we did it off Broadway. For a Broadway stunt, it's sort of regular. For an off-Broadway stunt, that's an expensive off-Broadway stunt.
You did that shit at Cherry Lane too?
Yes.
Yeah, it was very big for the.
And it was huge.
Yeah.
It was like, people were like, people would be like, whoa! Like, it was really wild.
I mean, I remember it getting a pop in the theater on Broadway too, just because it's a lot of toys, and I don't have kids, but I'm just saying, objectively speaking, that volume of toys is enough to put people on their heels. That's wild, though.
No, it's wild.
I'm very heartened that as an idiot, it actually is staged exactly the way I imagine it, which is like two guys in cargo jeans pulling a rope and then stuff falls down. It just makes me gratifying.
You know what's funny about it is every night the crew would like they pull it, and then all I see is on stage is them like walking away, like leaving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is perfect. It's just like they had just done a hit.
Yeah, but that was like their rap. Like they're like, that's all right, that's it. See you on Tuesday. That's great.
Yeah. Their rap. Yeah, exactly. Their verse.
You want to explain the idea and
yes.
we need
So
we need you people in the audience, chat here.
So in the comments, just write in the comments whether you're in Brooklyn or where you're from, just so we have a sense. California. Oh, we hope you're okay. Yep. SF Bay area. That's
SF Bay. I'm alive.
I'm alive. That's great. Portland. We hope you're okay. Oh my gosh.
That's a lot of people have not left their house in days.
Maybe we should just leave the "we hope you're okay" thing implied, because wherever you're watching this from, it is like
America. We hope you're okay.
Yeah.
Indiana, Queens, representing Queens.
Austin.
Wow, this is
Austin. All right. Old Bridge, New Jersey. I saw
Old Bridge,
Red Bank, and Two Rivers. Yeah, because we worked on the show at Two Rivers. Borum Hill.
That's where we used to live.
Yes, indeed.
And then we moved to Carroll Gardens.
That's right, down the street.
1 block away.
Knock on the window.
All right. Hello from Austin. So what we do is we hold up, in Baltimore, we hold up these different options. Do you want to do these two to start with, maybe?
That's what we, that's how we start.
So then you choose in the comments which you want to see. Who did, or introvert versus extrovert. So you vote in the comments.
Who did?
And then we'll read like a couplet of poetry and comedy.
Overwhelmingly, who did?
Introvert. We've noticed there's a lot of
closer.
There's a lot of introverts at bookstores.
Yeah, there's more.
Is the truth.
Introvert versus extrovert is actually surging in the chat. This is exciting. I've never felt more alive.
Introvert versus extrovert might win the electoral college, but who did might win?
This is the dreaded 269 scenario.
Should we even be joking about this?
No, absolutely not. Sorry, it's a vibe killer. All right,
it's going to be funny in 3 years.
So we have 3, 4, 5.
Recount, nice.
Recount.
It is actually tied.
You guys are tiebreakers, Patrick.
Patrick, you should do it.
I would say who did, just because it sounds like a Saints game.
All right, yeah, let's do it.
It's about a time where Mike learned his lesson.
There's usually not a preface for this. That feels judgmental.
Breaking new ground.
It's about time Mike learned his lesson. What
Seeing where this goes.
I'm just kidding, because it's like really about when I learned my lesson.
Mike learned his lesson. Okay. Okay. When Jen and I first met, our work schedules didn't match. Jen worked 9 to 6 in an office building overlooking the Hudson, and I was on the road 70% of the time doing shows. To make matters worse, when I was in New York City, I was performing at night, so I, stay with me, showed up at her job every day without an invitation for 2.5 weeks. In current times, this would be called stalking. At the time, it was called stalking. I wouldn't recommend this tactic unless you're completely willing to go to jail or get married. So I would pop up at Jen's work every day with flowers, and I'd go into the conference room or her office, and Jen would be mortified. She'd whisk me out to Pier 60, and we would make out on the promenade. The first time this happened, Jen's phone dropped out of her pocket mid-kiss.
Prank calls from fish. The first time my husband kissed me, my cell phone fell out of my pocket into the Hudson River. And to this day, I still receive prank calls from fish.
Jen is a poet. She's always published under a pseudonym. It's Allen Ginsberg. Actually, it's J-Hope Stein, but I've coaxed her into revealing her pseudonym for this book. Jen is an introvert. I'm an extrovert. An extrovert is someone who gets energy from being around other people, and an introvert doesn't like you. Or she might like you, but she's going to need me to explain why we're leaving the party. That is my role in our marriage. I'm her social bodyguard. When Jen is past her point, I have to come up with an immediate excuse for us to leave. And And then, oh wait.
Yeah, that was a little bit of.
Oh yeah. Which is all to say, I love my marriage. I'm not saying it's perfect. I think all marriages have an undercurrent of tension at all times because this is where it gets who-diddy. You have two people experiencing many of the same events at the same time and two very different memories of that same event. A few years ago, we were in a hotel elevator in Chicago, and I remember on the lobby level, we had stayed at the hotel before, and I remember that on the lobby level, there was a cafe that Jen had loved, and I said, I just remembered you love the cafe in this hotel, and Jen said, who did? And the subtext of who did was A, that wasn't me. B, that was another woman you were dating. C, I'm not happy about this. We get to the lobby, the elevator doors open, and Jen says, oh my God, you're right. I love this cafe. And I thought I nearly died in the elevator. I almost had a heart attack 2 minutes ago, and you just casually remembered I'm right. So now whenever we have a shared memory that isn't exactly the same, one of us says the phrase who did, which is our way of saying we're both probably wrong. That's who did. That's who did.
How many days of the showing up to your office did it go from creepy to lovely, back to lovely to creepy? Like, how did that arc go?
It was cautionary. I mean,
well, I'd say here's the thing. Like, what I liked about Mike is that he had this urgency to him. I'm calling. And like, I was like, what is that all about? And I remember when we were dating.
Love.
I remember being on the phone with him and
That's
being like,
the urgency.
Can you tell me more about this like urgency? Like he was 25 when I met him. He was just like so urgent to do everything.
Yeah, it's true.
And like, I was just fascinated by it actually in relation to a lot of things. He was like, I'm writing a one-person show called Sleepwalk With Me. I'm going to put it up next week. Out of nowhere, he just like puts up a show, Sleepwalk With Me.
It was at UCB. It was at UCB, and I at the one at 26th Street at the time, and for the former UCB. Yeah. And I was like, we had been dating 3 weeks. I go, come see it. It was a disaster. But no one was there. I mean, it was disaster.
It was one of the most influential art experiences I've ever had in my life. I just had never experienced like being with someone saying they're going to do something in such sort of like out of nowhere, like pulling something out of the sky, being like, I'm going to do this, and then go walk up on stage and do it.
I'm like the cult leader in The Vow. Have you seen The Vow?
Yeah, I saw a little bit of it the other night. That is an extremely, I wouldn't have thought that was where you were going to go with your comp, but it makes some sense.
We're just watching it right now. So when you said it, I was like, oh God, that's like a cult leader.
I also like though, you're like, there's a sense of urgency. I like you. I'm attracted to you. You should come to see this show that talks about the time I jumped through a window.
Yeah. And broke up with my ex-girlfriend.
No, the first version of the show didn't have the jumping through the window.
Yeah.
The jumping through the window happened during our first year dating. Mm-hmm. So like I got the phone call in the middle of the night being like, I just
wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
that's such a mid-20s experience. The idea, like all of that. The idea of being like, come see my show. No one might be there, and also I might bomb. Also, I don't know your last name yet. Like, let's do it.
There's a fearlessness to the 20s that I feel like I don't think I would do that now.
And you were
my office?
No.
Do you sleepwalk with me?
No, neither of those things.
Really?
I'm going to take you to McManus Cafe after this is over.
No, I know. It probably did go to McManus Cafe.
That neighborhood was an especially cursed. If it's the theater I'm thinking of, it was like in the Gristedes that had like the Astrodome top on it for some reason.
Yeah. Had great times in that place.
For sure. But then the idea of being like, where are you going to go afterwards? It's just like, there's a bar with like a dead guy in it. And like the bus station isn't that far away. Like it's not what you want.
Yeah. Oh,
should we do another one?
Yeah, let's do another.
Yeah, let's do another one.
All right. This has like a lot of options. So let's see.
Let's do maybe 3 of them. So we got, I Feel Like a Mammal plus Little Astronaut.
Which we've never done.
Oh.
We have, I feel like maybe this one we have, maybe this one we haven't done that much. This is our final one, so we should do some ones that we haven't done. Friendly Advice plus Third Arm. And then maybe one other.
Maybe like...
we haven't done that. Cynical versus Skeptical.
I feel like we should do this one.
Okay. Or Sympathetic Eating plus Maternity Pants.
Okay, now you said you have not done Little Astronaut and the third one?
So I feel like a mammal plus little astronaut.
You have not done.
I don't think we did that one.
I don't think we did it.
And let's pick between the two you haven't done.
Okay.
I think which was the first and the third.
The other one, well, the other one is friendly advice and third arm, which we did once.
Yeah, we haven't done this one.
Oh, 500, and then this one, 525,000 photos plus the cup.
Ooh.
525,600 photos plus the cup.
Mammal astronaut. Everyone wants mammal astronaut.
So far, but you remember when we called it too early last time?
I know.
On our face.
I know.
Again.
Oh, yeah.
Pants. I just like somebody pants exclamation point.
Yeah, that's how you can tell an event is going well.
I think mammal astronaut, like, does everybody, how does this work? Does everybody vote? I feel like we've got strong vibes for mammal astronaut.
Yeah, mammal astronaut seems like it's got it.
Look what you've
astronaut
done.
pants, that is not one of them.
Astronaut pants is not an option, but it's a wonderful phrase, and I'm glad I read it.
What page is that on?
What are we doing?
Astronaut pants is not one. Mammal astronaut, I think, is your winner.
Mammal astronaut is.
I feel like astronaut pants might be Andre 3000's final return.
Or that's just like a really super heavy IPA made by someplace.
And then basically it's this.
Yeah.
Okay. One morning, Jen and I are lying on the couch and I'm rubbing her shoulders and we're sharing a pint of double peanut butter chocolate chip ice cream. And Jen says, "It's hard for me to breathe or speak or move." And I say, "That really limits your options. That's my big three." And she says, "I feel," and then she pauses and takes a long, deep breath, "like a mammal." And I say, "You are a mammal. I mean, we're both mammals, but what do you want to do?" She says, "I want to go to the Museum of Natural History, be with the other mammals." So we go to the Museum of Natural History. We start, oh my gosh, I've never read this out loud. It's so hard to say, other than the audiobook. We start at the Museum of Human Origins. We stare at the exhibit of humans and chimpanzees who both evolved from hominins. Next in the human chain comes Orinin, then Ardipithecus, then Australopithecus, then Homo erectus, then Homo sapiens. Don't quote me on that because, quote, "the mystery remains unresolved," which is something it says at the Museum of Natural History next to the dinosaurs. But there's something about staring at these fossils that gives me and Jen a sense of peace. We visited this museum scores of times through years of dating and marriage, but it never gets old. Or rather, it already is old. It can get older, but not that much older in relative terms. We love this museum. There's something calming about staring at dust and thinking, we will be dust someday as well. Dust isn't so bad. I just hope to get my bones some decent placement at the museum. Hopefully they don't mistake me for Australopithecus. I'm 5'8.5" and have terrible posture, so that kind of mix-up would be understandable. We also take solace today in the idea that all of these ancestors gave birth and lived and died and did their best with much worse healthcare plans. We wander over to the Hall of Ocean Life. This is one of Jen's favorite spots. She loves fish. She writes poems about fish. She enjoys small portions of food as well as swimming. I take photos of Jen with porpoises and walruses and dolphins. Jen stares at the orca and says, "This is the happiest I've ever felt." We get to the big blue whale. Jen looks at this luxury-sized creature and looks at me. She has something big on her mind. She says, "I know you didn't want to have a kid, and I want you to know that I'm going to work hard so this baby won't change the way we live our lives." The next morning at 10 a.m., our daughter is born.
Little astronaut. A newborn rests her head on the earth of mother. Everything else is outer space.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Oh, good.
Yours is beautiful.
I love that one. I love that poem so much.
I like yours.
That's why we work together well, because I can't get enough of listening to Jen's poetry.
I think if I had put together in my head what mammal astronaut referred to, that would have gotten my vote too. That's one of my favorite little bits. That was really cool to hear, actually. I love the way that poem capped that bit.
Cool. Thanks for choosing it, everyone. This is like every time we do this,
we've never done that one.
So it made me feel a little emotional.
Me too.
Whenever I hear about Una being born, I can't get emotional. I can't help but get emotional. And also, the Museum of Natural History is so important to us. We go back there every year. and on her birthday and take pictures of her in front of Australopithecus.
Yes.
Except this year we couldn't because of the virus, so we sewed a blue whale and we also made Australopithecus puppets.
I'm seeing if it's around.
The whale
She
is
sewed this whale
it's all the way
together, and she
upstairs.
doesn't.
That would be good. That would be good.
We like
It also plays a key role in Silence of the Lambs to
Bring it
Yes.
back. Yeah.
come full
Right.
circle.
That's a great point. And Squid and the Whale, which is a very close to our heart film.
yeah.
Do you just the Squid and the Whale though? Like I always feel like I felt bad, and like I feel worse now going there. That movie is like in your head. Like it's a very unpleasant movie, and especially if your parents are divorced. And Noah Baumbach ruined the museum for me. Is what I'm saying.
I have a very specific take on that movie, and Jen and I love the movie.
Yeah.
And Noah, whom we're fans of and friends with, or at least friendly with, I would call him a friend, but I don't know if he'd call us a friend. We'll have to find out. But
we heighten the stakes on your cake here. This is good.
Right.
We really love that movie, and Noah says this, and I love that he says this because it confuses some people. He always says like all my movies are comedies, and like some people don't think they are, but they're written that way. And like
He said even Margot at the Wedding.
Even Margot at the Wedding, which is like extremely dark, and like the themes are wild.
I'm gonna have to take his word for that one being a comedy. That was another real solid, just feeling strange for a day. Reappraising some relationships in your life type movie.
No, but I actually went back after he said that and watched it through that lens, and I was like, oh yeah, it's dark.
Yeah.
It's a really dark comedy. But like Squid and the Whale, like we quote it like Caddyshack or something. Like we'll be like, it's the filet of the neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like some of the Jeff Daniels lines are so funny.
If this leads to Marriage Story 2, I just want to say we're not responsible. The sequel. I think we got time for another one.
Yeah, if you guys are up for another one.
What time is it? We have one. We could take.
It's 8:15-ish, so I think we could do one. And
okay, we'll do one more, and then we'll do questions at the end, and maybe in the comments.
Yeah, actually, well, yeah. Your call. If you'd rather take questions, I mean, it's.
Where is this one?
Dave has a specific Michael Jordan question.
No, I don't want to do that
Michael
shit, man.
Jordan
Let's talk about the book. We don't need to talk about that. Let's do this.
You want to do this last one, or you want to do or both?
It's a good question.
This will be fast.
Let's
more reading the people demand.
Well, this will be fast because I don't think.
Yeah.
And then we'll just.
Why don't we give them no choice? No, I'm just kidding.
If there's one you haven't done that you'd like to do.
Yeah, these are two that have a conclusive feel.
Okay.
Onomatopoeia plus now clock.
Or there will be a Jesus in your room. We learn to dance. So that's onomatopoeia now clock. There will be a Jesus in your womb. We learn to dance.
Wow. People love Jesus.
Yeah. The classic debate between Jesus and pizza. This battle is joined once
Rages
again.
on.
Yeah.
Jesus versus pizza is Mike's next book.
There's little do you know there are Russian trolls voting in the webinar chat right now.
I will say though that the Middle Eastern pizza at the good falafel place is bullshit.
Oh,
like Mama June
that's
type
controversial.
Thing?
Yeah,
that's controversial.
All right, I'm seeing. Let's see, pizza, Jesus, pizza, pizza, Jesus, pizza, Jesus, pizza. I think it's pizza by a nose.
Okay, all right. Jen loves that because she loves the pizza chapter.
Like the book.
I just gotta find it. Pizza chapter. You know the page? You'd think after.
I don't.
You'd think after 15 or 20 of these readings we'd have it down.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
Oh yeah. No, that's not it.
Pizza o'clock reigns supreme. Somebody commented. Get it?
Oh yeah. Slice of life 218.
Yeah, and you can do like a short version if you want to talk more about Michael Jordan.
One day I take Una to Sal's Pizzeria on our corner. I order 2 slices and we sit at the table and eat. She's thrilled. I say, Una, do you like the pizza? And she says, PP, which I'm pretty sure means pizza and also yes. When we finish our slices, she says, PP. She wants more pizza and also yes. I'm not sure what to do. Her mom said 1 slice, but she didn't say anything about 2 slices. How much pizza can a 1-year-old eat, I think? The battle cry grows stronger. Pee-pee! I can see this look in her eye that I recognize. She wants more pizza, and she wants it now.
The now clock. The now clock is the clock of a toddler, in which every number is replaced by the word now, and the hands of the now are always pointed directly at the now, or between 2 nows.
I have a pizza problem, which is to say that when I see a pizza, I get excited. My whole body perks up, and I think, oh, I'd like to have that inside of me. I don't know if it's the circularity or the softness or the warmth, but it's almost sexual. I wouldn't have sex with pizza, but if I ate a pizza in private, I wouldn't mention it to my wife. I'm even excited by the word pizza because it looks like a pizza, which is, of course, a literary device called onomatopoeia. Each Z has a slice, and the A is a slice. It's 5 slices in 1 word. I like pizza so much, I get excited when I see the word plaza. When I think about changing my diet because of the type 2 diabetes I developed in an earlier chapter, it's the thought of cutting pizza that crushes me. Then one day I have a realization, I can't stop eating pizza, but I can eat 1 slice. This isn't based on a doctor recommendation. It's a logic that occurs to me that the amount of bread and sauce and cheese in a single slice isn't the problem. It's the gluttony of eating 8 slices that's turning my body into the size of 8 people. And so I do it. I change my personal pizza policy, 1 slice every week, sometimes every 2 weeks. 1 single dinky slice, and I love it. I'm going to risk offending pizza purists and say I love it more. The idea that I can taste greatness but resist gluttony, that I can sip the richest nectar of the gods but not drink everyone's syrup. Within 6 months, I lose 10 pounds. My cholesterol goes down, my blood sugar, not where I need it to be, but enough that I know I'm moving in the right direction. I start to apply this principle to other parts of my life. I don't need to tour 112 cities. I can tour 20, just a slice. I don't need to work 7 days a week. Some weeks I can work 3, just a slice. This is a part of a larger strategy to become a whole member of my family. 1 slice, that'll do. As for Una, she gets the 2nd slice.
That's very nice.
That's Jen's favorite, I think.
Yeah.
Like mammal.
Oh, yeah, mammal.
I listened to your podcast interview with Jimmy Kimmel last week, and you guys were talking about Brooklyn people who order Domino's. Basically, his uncle orders Pizza Hut as something separate.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
I have a flip side of that, though. I had to go home to Montana. There was a death in the family this summer, and our whole family's there. The stepsisters, my brother, all the kids, aunts, uncles, whatever have you. They bring in a bunch of Little Caesars.
Yeah.
My daughter looked at that as though she had just been handed a plate of dog food.
Oh.
She brought it back to point out that she tried to eat some Little Caesars pizza. And I was like, because your baseline Brooklyn pizza is like Speedy Romeo's like her 4th favorite pizza.
Oh my God.
So it is the exact opposite of the why would you order Domino's? How can you not just nibble on some Little Caesars outside of Brooklyn? But she lives in a pizza kingdom. It's a magical pizza kingdom.
Yeah, Una did that too. She tasted some Rhode Island pizza and she said, it's not the best pizza I've ever had.
I know. It's not the best pizza I've ever had.
That is, not only is that well phrased, there's something so recognizable about that, even as somebody who's not a person of child, hearing like my nephew or my niece give like a withering critique of something while trying to be super polite.
An unintentional
and they're like 7, so they're basically just sort of using these like sort of like hedged phrases that they've heard their parents say where they're like, is it, I don't know, it's a B. It's a B to a B minus for being honest.
So speaking of the best in their field, Michael Jordan. Of course.
We got to get the sports then. Here's the sports.
Oh God! All right, yeah.
We've all been waiting for.
So before we went on, Mike mentioned that the Michael Jordan documentary that sort of seized America's imagination earlier. So you are not necessarily a basketball fan.
Well, what Mulaney and I talked about on our episode of my podcast, Working It Out, is that he grew up in Chicago in the 90s, and I grew up in Boston in the 80s. And so we basically lived parallel dynasties that handed off to each other in a certain sense. And I wasn't a basketball fan, and yet if you live in Massachusetts in the 80s, you can't not be a Celtics fan.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no universe. And so when I watched the documentary, I mean, I just think it's a good human drama, period. Like, I think the documentary itself stands alone.
That's what I was going to ask about, was that, like, even if you didn't care about the basketball, like, as a basketball fan and as somebody that grew up watching Jordan just repeatedly pants my crappy hometown team a couple times a year, sometimes in person even, like, he as a character is somebody that I've, lived with and grew up with, like, just in terms of having thought about that. If you didn't care as much, like, what was it that grabbed you about it? Was it that he was so compellingly dark and strange, or was there some?
I have a very specific thing with this, and I think Mulaney has this too. Although I was claiming to him that he was the Michael Jordan in my life, and I was the Scottie Pippen, sort of going like, yeah, you go, you're the best at this, But it's watching someone who is the best definitively. Mm-hmm. And that's what's different about art and sports is that I think artists marvel at athletes because we're like, you can't say something's the best film. You can't even say Spotlight's the best film. You can't say the Korean film, the Parasite's the best film. You can say, I really loved it and I thought it brought a lot to the conversation, but you can't say it's the best. Michael Jordan, you can say he was the best in his era in basketball, and he may have been the greatest basketball player of all time and greatest athlete of all time. And to watch that and to watch what it takes to be that it's a journey. I just think it's an emotional journey.
That's fair enough. I mean, I guess I get it. I mean, I feel like for me, what's quantifiable about it is cool. But yeah, if a poet and a comic can watch it and be like, yeah, objectively that is that, then like, yeah,
what's interesting to you? She didn't watch it.
Oh, all right.
What greatness? I'm
just kidding. Greatness is interesting to me, but I don't know. I didn't hook into that Michael Jordan doc. I'm the only person in the world who did that.
I actually did not like
every doc ever.
I didn't really like it, and I'm a big basketball fan.
Yeah, well, I had to write about it, and I came around on it, but it was mostly he stressed me out. Like his presence
he's stressful.
Was very.
Isn't that interesting that he's stressful? Yeah. I think it's interesting that he's stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was what he was known for. I think it was what was hard for me. I guess like I have this idea. It's like a sentimental sort of idea that like, yeah, he needed to be that driven to like defeat whatever team came out of the Western Conference, and that's the price he paid for the greatness and blah blah blah. Then I want to imagine him just like enjoying his life,
having a good time. Yeah,
and he's fucking not. Like that is just absolutely. He's still like stewing over stuff and. Like some perceived slight that like a member of the Utah Jazz directed at him when like George H.W. Bush was president. Yes. But like at the same time, like, whatever, that's him. Like I can't tell him to be another way.
Well, there's the other thing that I thought was interesting about it is that essentially, and this applies to art, I think, and this is where it does have some shared DNA. I think when you look a lot of basketball players like Pippen and like Jordan, they're people who they had to learn to different skills at different stages in their growth spurts and things like that. And then the sum total of those things achieves greatness at a certain point. And so I think it was like just watching different people who on different teams, they were a center or they were a forward, but on this team, they're the point guard, and it's just like, I'm fascinated by that dynamic too.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point as well.
We started a few minutes late, so I want to ask you one more question. I'm sorry, Jen, this is very much a Mike question. And it's mildly basketball related, but not really. How did this Georgetown comedy mafia thing get going? Like, I'm just fascinated that 4 or 5 of the biggest comics going went to Georgetown, which I know. I went to Jesuit school. I mean, I went, Farley was funny, but there was no.
That's funny.
How did that happen? And was basketball when you were there, you were there around Iverson's time, no?
I was a year after. I was a year after Iverson left, so it was like essentially
the Victor Page administration.
Like nothing.
Yeah,
like the team was over.
But was there a comedy scene? Like, I assume it's a basketball school. Was there anything going on? How did this all happen?
No, as a matter of fact, I think like this actually ties into the thing I was just saying about the Jordan doc that interests me is necessity is the mother of invention. And I think like, I think at Georgetown, there was no real arts program. I mean, I don't want to be offensive to the arts program, but
if it exists,
but when I came to Georgetown, it was like, oh shit, like our improv, like I got cast in the improv group and it was like the biggest thing it was a big deal to me. But then I was like, oh, we don't perform in a theater. There isn't a theater for us. We're performing in a place called Bulldog Alley, which was a bar, a sports bar. I mean, literally, it was a sports bar where they cleared out all the tables, and then we put in chairs ourselves, and then we put on improv shows. So it was like me and a bunch of friends, and then I cast Nick Kroll, and then Nick Kroll cast John Mulaney, and then as a result, the three of us, a year after I graduated. Oh, and Jacqueline Novak. I'm sorry. And so
Jim Gaffigan I guess he would have been before you. He's also right?
Yes, but he was like 10 years before me.
Oh, okay.
But then one of the people who cast me was James Murray from Impractical Jokers. So you have Murr, if you've ever seen the show, he goes by Murr. So you have like James Murray who pursued a career, you have me who pursued a career, Nick who pursued a career, and John, and then at the same time that I was there, Bradley Cooper was there in the acting program. I didn't know Bradley, but it was yeah. I mean, he was around. Like he was at the same parties. I'd see him in plays and stuff.
But for a school that you would never think of, I mean, that's a pretty high batting average. That's pretty impressive.
Impressive.
It was wild. It was wild. And Nick and John and I stayed really close, and like I think that's part of it too. Is like you form a community of people, and then there's a little bit of sort of friendly competition to it. You try to help each other, but also there's a healthy, friendly competition to it too.
Well, we are past time. Shout out Big John Thompson, by the way. R.I.P.
Oh yeah, yes.
Thank you both for doing this. I know you guys have been on a long. Well, you call it a book tour? I don't know. This is you did a lot of these. It seems like
a lot of
the book came out in June, and then by the way, if people want to buy the book from Greenlight in the next 48 hours.
For all your pregnant friends.
Oh, yeah.
Currently pregnant, could be pregnant in the future.
Anyway,
buy it now.
It's a good...
Just if they like having sex. Do you have any friends who enjoy sex?
All your
just like sex.
Friends.
No, but my pitch for the book, I've never said this one in the readings, but like my pitch for the book is that I have a friend who I won't name, but he said he saw the show and read the book when his wife was pregnant, and it was very, very helpful.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Very helpful for when he experienced having a child, because when he read the book, he was like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, it's like, this is extreme. These are extreme feelings, you know?
There are not a lot of books written for like, it's okay to be scared, Dad. You don't think this is the right idea. Like,
a lot of instruction manuals, but not many that admit.
Yes, it's very much like, you need ice chips. Like a lot of books will say you're going to need some ice chips, but
not the ice chips book.
This is not the ice chips book.
Or the
let me say,
this is the ice chipper book, not the ice chips book.
One thing before we wrap up, I know this is not the usual crowd watching this because they bought the book, but if you want to join us 9/29, it is the day of the first debate. But if you come on at 7 o'clock, we have an author who wrote a book called Wheels of Courage, which is the story of how wheelchair sports got invented in America.
Wow.
And it's super uplifting and super great, like the good shit that America should be. And I encourage anyone to show up because the debate's going to be at 9 and all of that is going to go right out the goddamn window. You can feel good for 2 hours.
I actually am not watching the debate. I feel like I'm in.
All right.
I'm decided. I won't tell you who I've decided for, but I feel like I've decided.
Yes, we're going to hear both sides of the issues, make informed decisions.
The Ken Bone mentality that we look for here at the Squawkin Sports reading series.
a guy like Ken Bone would be a welcome change.
Actually, I guess
Yeah, of course.
Well,
but by the way, 48 hours, we will give, Jen and I will donate to the Food Bank New York for the next 48 hours. So buy 10 for your pregnant friends.
It really is a good book. We recommend it.
Thank you, everybody. And we will see you soon. Chelsea, you want to take us out?
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, a huge thank you, Mike, Jen, Patrick, and David, for tonight's wonderful conversation and reading, for some well-needed laughs tonight. A reminder to everyone that tonight's event has been recorded, so if you missed any part of it, you just want to rewatch, you want to share with family and friends who didn't make it out tonight, keep an eye out for that on Greenlight's social channels. Another reminder, as Mike and Jen said, that you can buy another copy of the new one from Greenlight Bookstore. That link, that book buy page, is in the chat, and for the next 48 hours, a portion of proceeds will go to Food Bank for New York City. You will get an email with shipping information for the copy of the new one you already bought with your ticket within the next few days. Make sure you have orders at greenlightbookstore.com whitelisted, so that email goes to your inbox and not to your spam. And if you're interested in future Squawkin Sports events, the link to the September 29th one is in the chat, and you can go to greenlightbookstore.com/event to see what we've got lined up for October. Thanks so much again, everyone, for coming out tonight, and have a great rest of your evening.
Bye.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Patrick.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon, everybody. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
Yep.